Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I am good. We finally have happy springtime weather, so I'm wearing my happy springtime muumuu.
Hey, we said no moo. We're not calling it a moo.
Tunic? I don't know
It's
what
all
you
a
call it.
tunic. Now
Midi
that is
dress?
what
Yeah.
what was the other one?
Midi dress?
Right? Oh yeah, those are much more sexier terms than moo. We could try it's like dried plums or prunes,
Yeah,
right? Or something like that. We've got to if we're in branding and marketing, we've got to pay attention to how we even talk about our clothes, I guess.
sure.
But it is nice. It is very springy and,
It's
and
nice.
pretty and
Windows are open. It's good.
I'm happy to see flowers blooming and sun
Yeah,
shining and rabbits in the lawn.
yeah. That sounds like maybe it's not a good thing, but
Rabbits in the lawn. I've given up. They
okay.
can have what
Gotcha.
they have.
Gotcha. Okay, so the topic today actually was suggested by my son. Um,
Love that.
and it is what makes a good client who you want to keep around,
Hmm.
which I thought was pretty interesting because I feel like, I mean, you probably feel it too, as the owner of an agency, like, I feel like I'm always like, help me get the clients where, like, I'm not spending a lot of time thinking about which clients do I want to get rid of.
Oh, firing clients. Ooh.
Right. No, but like, at a certain point, all clients are great clients because you need them to
Right.
survive. So I don't know that I've ever spent a ton of time thinking about what makes a good one because, like,
Mm,
any,
yeah.
obviously, this is overstating it, but any client is a great client if they're paying you money. But the reality is that's not true. We've all had terrible
Right.
clients.
And actually, I don't have statistics around this. So I'll just, we'll all just acknowledge I might be making this up on a data level. But a bad client actually will cost you money versus a good client.
I can believe it.
Because
Yeah.
of the extra effort that you have to put in, the stress on your team, the sleepless nights, like I know we've had bad clients where, and here we are diving right in with the bad, what's the bad versus the good,
Yeah.
but where we've had to probably triple our time as a team to troubleshoot away from the work on the actual client account to manage the clients themselves. And so, yeah, that became very costly very
Mm-hmm.
quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay.
So
So, and wait, can we
it's going to
just,
be very hard to position this all as what makes a good client because it's so much more fun to talk about all the things that make a bad client. So I'm
good
trying to
point,
like reverse
counterpoint.
engineer everything in my brain.
Well, and I want to like to, when we talk, point out that the reason it's important for anybody listening to this to listen to us or to care about why we know what a good client is or not is because Danielle, you and I and others like us, we are business owners as well as experts in influencer marketing. That's a really interesting and important dynamic and set of skills and experiences that we bring to the table because then we understand our clients from a much different perspective than just you might if you were inside a behemoth agency and you're a client account manager and it's not your P&L and you go home at the end of the day and sure maybe you're getting Slack channels from your boss and whatever, but you're not really attached to
Right.
that employer the way that you and I are attached to building our businesses. So I got really wordy there, but I just want to point out that this business building entrepreneurship that we bring to the table is super important for how we deliver the ultimate benefits and packages and work for our clients.
Yeah. Well, and I think what I kind of take from that is that we have to go a little bit deeper in this conversation than, like, I think there's certain table stakes, right? Like, obviously you want clients who treat you with respect.
Mm,
But like that's, I don't know, like for me, like that's just kind
that's
of
like a human level.
human level,
Hmm.
right? But like for us as business owners, what's
Right.
really meaningful. And we had an experience at the end of last year that was so meaningful to us and the sign of such a great client. And it has never happened to me before. So I can share that one.
Yeah.
We had done a kind of a one-off campaign for a client in the second half of last year, and then they were happy with it, and they came back to us and asked us to put together a proposal for, like, agency of record, basically influencer marketing for 2025.
Nice.
it turns out it was competitive. Even though they had loved working with us, this was competitive. There were 5 agencies who participated in this. We ended up winning it. But on the Zoom meeting where we talked with the client, where she awarded us the business and let us know, she gave us feedback on, she was like, we're going with you. We are excited, but can I give you some feedback on your proposal? And I learned that we had the ugliest proposal of all 5, which was so helpful to know. It was so helpful to know.
Like literally your graphics, you mean, your layout,
right.
your, okay.
Yeah. Like they chose us because the content of it, and they loved our ideas, and they loved our strategy, and they loved working with us. And ultimately that's more important. But she was like, I thought you'd like to know that the other ones looked so much better than yours.
Okay.
And who would ever tell us that?
And right. I've got to be honest. I think that's a fear that I harbor as a business owner, because you almost never see somebody else's proposal. Flying blind a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's an amazing piece of feedback.
It was so great. It made me want to ask all of my existing clients, like, what could we be doing better? You know?
Tell me we're pretty. Are we pretty? Are we pretty enough? Yeah. No. Okay. Well, that's interesting, because I was just thinking about, is that not part of your onboarding, offboarding process?
You know, I don't know that it has been. And I think it was a big miss on our part to not be asking that. You know, like, what, thank you so much for choosing us. Was there anything that the other contenders presented to you, or the way that they presented stuff to you? Was there anything you loved about the competitors that you would like us to, you know,
we could
that you want to share, that we could learn from?
We do that regularly on the flip side. When we don't get the business, or when a client steps away from working with us, I will routinely ask, you know, what can you tell us that can help us do a better job going forward, or that we can learn from?
We always ask that, but I guess it had never occurred to me to ask the people who choose us.
Yeah. Right.
Where we missed the mark. Because you're just so happy that you, like, overall you hit it. Yeah. So I think, okay, so number 1, what makes a great client? I think, like, honesty and constructive criticism, like this like kind of acknowledgement that, like, let's move forward together in a better way. Like, we are a team now. So what, like, what has she, like, she is in this very strong position of having seen 4 other proposals and presentations.
Yep.
Like, what can we take from that? Not necessarily to steal ideas or anything like that, but what can we learn from those that move us both together to a better place?
Okay, so I'm having this moment, this meta moment around why your agency and expertise and mine is so beneficial for any of our clients. It's because, don't you often find that you can aggregate the data from all of your client work over 14 years to distill trends, to distill best practices, you can almost forecast what's going to happen without revealing any branded proprietary information. And what you're just describing is the same thing. Like, we need to be thinking about that for our brands, or for our agencies.
Yeah.
What can these people tell us in an agnostic way? They've maybe worked with a lot of agencies, they've worked with a lot of vendors. What can our formalized process be for tapping that information from them in the same way we would do that for our brand clients?
Right.
That's really cool.
I mean, I love asking that question when we're pitching new work and we're having that initial get to know you meeting. It's always, if they've worked with others, I love asking. Clearly, you're not 100% happy with the people you've worked with previously or that you're working with now. Where are they missing the mark?
Yeah. We've also done that when they're not unhappy, or they're coming into influencer marketing for the first time and they're doing that competitive, looking at a couple different agencies. I will say, what are you seeing out there? What are you not seeing out there? What's missing for you? What's making it difficult to maybe move forward? There's so much to learn from that. So to loop it back to good clients, we sort of bulk tag this as what's a good client, but a client is a person.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the people inside of that client, inside of that brand or agency we're working with, who are business professionals and understand the value of that feedback, the value of that direct relationship, the value of, we want this to succeed for you. If you don't tell us what's happening in real time, whether it's on winning the business or as we continue together, we can't address it. We can't work on it with you.
I
So
think that's kind of a
helpful.
segue to another one, which is this honesty and uh, like openness about their business, which that's been very much at the forefront this year, right? Because it's very hard to come up with a client who has not been impacted by the tariffs, by the government cutbacks, by the economy. So um, understanding how they're impacted by where they're getting their materials from, by how they're addressing it, by do they have stockpiles of product? How long is it going to last? What are their concerns? What are they doing about it? How can we help? What's just the more you know about what a client's just the
Dealing
more you
with.
know about their business and what they're dealing with, the more helpful and strategic you can be in trying to be, again, to be that partner to
Right.
them.
So if we're encouraging brands to be good clients with this conversation, the reason it is a strategic outcome that we're looking to create for them out of that knowledge, like you just said, how much product you have stockpiled or what. I have a client who is on hold. It is not an economic thing or a government culture policy thing, but they're on hold because production got knocked off kilter, which they didn't expect. But to your point, our brand clients sometimes are so in it, they don't realize all of this information, how valuable it is, right? So I love that you're encouraging, like, let's have a brain dump where you just tell us everything as part of our relationship. You may not know what the value is, but we will. And we can pick through it and say, oh, remember when you told us this? We're going to now adjust this campaign or who we're looking for or how we're going to approach them based on, maybe now instead of a national rollout, because you have limited supply, we're going to do a regional rollout or something
Right.
like that.
Right.
That's really, yeah. And I also feel like the friction there is they don't understand how valuable all of this organizational knowledge is that they have. So helping them understand that is incumbent upon us. There is also a little bit of proprietary. Like, I think sometimes they're hesitant to share because the other piece is, what are you doing on social? What are you doing with your paid? What are you doing at trade shows? What are you doing with corporate communications? What does your thought leadership look like? All of those things. And I think there can be a little bit like, don't give me homework on the brand side. I don't want to have to bring you
Yeah.
up to speed. And also, I don't know. Do you feel like there have been like a not great client would be one who silos all of that information and
That's what I was going to
protects it?
say. Like, yeah, a not great client does that. The great clients, like, we work with United Dairy of Michigan, UDIM, and they're amazing. And they just 2 weeks ago had an agency day, and they brought all of their
Mm.
agencies together for a full day. And we, got to learn more about how United Dairy of Michigan works, how they fit into the larger ecosystem of dairy associations. We met the media buying agency, we met the creative agency, we met all the different the agricultural PR agency who's informed us like such cool things that you wouldn't know, like radio is huge for farmers because they're on their tractors in the fields and they listen to radio, and that's a great way to get information to farmers. Like, it was so educational
Yes.
and
Yes.
interesting, and we all ended up with these great ideas and when you let all of your agencies come together and collaborate, things like it just improves everything.
Yeah, the momentum, the collaboration, the creativity. I will say this is not necessarily yet formally part of our sales and onboarding process, but it is simmering in my mind that I recently had the very clear understanding that a good client is really invested in us succeeding as much as them succeeding, right? So that agency day is a really easy, low key way to do that, because it's not just success in the connective tissue between all of these agencies and support systems. But let's be honest, now you know that PR agency, they may come to you with other work, right? For other clients, or, the graphic design, like all of that interconnectedness is just that rising tide that floats all boats. And we want clients, it's not their job to go do business development for me. I'm not saying that, but that they're invested in seeing us as an entity that needs to succeed so that they can succeed. It needs to be a win-win.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I do want to emphasize, like, I'm not looking again for some extraordinarily heroic efforts, but it's certainly the flip side is when you're keeping walled gardens, silos in your information, when you're not advocating for us to be treated fairly by your accounts payable team or your finance, your terms of payment. If you're not advocating for us, that you're our only influencer inside of your organization.
I mean, we used to talk about this a lot at Edelman, that like it was kind of the kiss of death when you got it treated like a vendor versus a partner.
Right.
Which is kind of what you're speaking to, right?
So we have 3 very clear, what would you call them, buckets or benchmarks for what a good client for us is. And one of them touches on that, which is they want a strategic partner. They want an expert in the room. We are not yes men. We are not employees. And that's a really, I think, tricky line sometimes to hold with your clients, because on the one hand, you even just said it, we're an extension of your team. We want to expand your team's capabilities. We want to be embedded to a large degree in what you're doing. So the tendency can be to start treating us like employees, and we as agency owners and entrepreneurs and business people need to keep that line.
Well, that's great when a client, like I love when clients say, I want you to push back. We hired you for your strategic expertise, and so please give it to us at every point. We're going to run a ton of ideas past you and a ton of options and talk to you about everything. And if we suggest something that's stupid, we want you to let us know.
Stupid, undoable, puts you at risk.
Yeah, like I'm not going to say stupid, but like, there might be better uses of your funds.
Right.
Yeah.
However, when the rubber meets the road, do you ever find that conversation that happened 6 months ago now bubbles up and you're like, okay, we're pushing back on you and it's not well received?
I don't know that I can think of an instance where it wasn't well received. I can think of numerous instances where we put it out there, we shared that we didn't think something was a good idea and the client just wanted to do it anyway.
Okay. What do you do? I'm fascinated though. What do you do? I know what we do. Because sometimes
we just make sure that we were on the record as saying we don't think this is going to work.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you never want to be that person who's saying "I told you so" and like, like
right? Nobody benefits from that.
Yeah, but you do it and you try to make it work. This actually, I was thinking, a lot of what we're talking about sounds like it's a lot more related to brand clients, and I know that you often work through an agency. We have probably half of our client work comes through agencies. And that sort of thing that situation where you're not able to provide your strategic expertise happens a ton with agencies, especially large PR agencies, I've found, where they came up with an idea without having those 14, 15 years of influencer marketing experience. They came up with an idea that sounds sexy and that sounds great, and they sold it into their client, and then they realized they couldn't activate it, and then they come to us to help clean it up and make it happen so that they don't lose face. And we can see instantly that this is a crazy idea.
Right. Where the problems
what are we even accomplishing? That I would say that happens more with agency clients than with brand clients, because we don't often, that happens with agency clients where we don't have a direct line of communication with the brand.
Or you haven't been brought
where
in.
We're white labeled, or the agency is keeping us in the background.
Okay. And you haven't been brought in at the right time.
Right. We're
right? You
brought in like after
clean up on
everything is
all
fully
three.
baked.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I loved our early days with agencies, the big agencies, because we actually were not white labeled. We were their expert and we played sort of good cop, bad cop. So they could placate their brand clients who wanted outlandish things. They would come and run it by us and sometimes directly say to us, we need language to push back on this. And
Yes,
we're
I
looking
love
at,
those agency. That
yes,
makes the best agency client where we have one that we're working with now and I love it. They do that all the time. They're like, okay, the client came to us and wants to work with this influencer. What do you think? The client, or we were sitting and brainstorming an idea and we came up with this idea that we think would work well as a part of the influencer campaign. Are we crazy? Does this make sense? Like
right.
they gut check
They
stuff
vet
with
it
us
through you. Yeah.
before signing on the dotted line or
And then
activating.
they take your expertise and advocate the right way to approach it. I think we can do that and we do that with our brand clients as well, because they're like our brand clients have clients internally, which is their C-suite, the upper level folks who don't necessarily understand influencer the way they do as boots on the ground with it. So the same thing can happen. And that, again, is an ideal client, brand or agency that does lean into our expertise and wants to hear, needs to hear, hired us to hear what the full 360 view on these things is. Yeah. I'm trying to think of what the other two buckets, I don't have them in front of me. One of them you already touched on for us, ideal client, is one that wants to grow together. So they're direct, like the only way we can help them is when they're direct, straightforward. Even if it's bad news, like we want to hear all of that because we've had, and I can't think of exact examples of this, but where they come to us and think something has gone wrong. And so they'll tell us that. And we're like, oh no, let us explain why this is good news or how this actually works to your advantage. I'll give you an example.
I was going to say, you lost me. Example,
Okay.
please.
So it's not that they would have come to us with bad news, but for instance, we were working with the United Soybean Board, talking about the benefits of soybean oil. You get it. As we had already we were in launch phase, we were in implementing, a study came out that was not controversial necessarily, but leaned negative about soybean oil. And so in the moment, there's a little bit of panic and chaos on the brand client side. Like, they were dealing with that fire, let's say, like the negative press. And they thought that it would impact us negatively. And in fact, part of our process is to always audit media as we're running these programs. So we knew about it. We'd already reached out to our team of influencers to let them know this is hitting the airwaves. How do you feel about this? Can you still participate? And sure enough, 2 people backed out. They weren't super negative about it. They just were like, we're not sure yet. So let us not be a voice for this program. And that's where the brand could feel like, oh, well, now these people, we're like, no, this is the best news. We want them to back out. We want them to self-select out so that we can fill that with folks who are still rah-rah. They like the messaging, they like the product, they're happy to advocate for you. So that's one of those pieces where it can look like bad news, but
Right.
we know that actually what on the surface looks like a problem is really a good thing. We've had that happen with other CPG brands where an influencer was excited to be part of it, got the product, went, oh no, I don't like the taste, I don't like the texture.
Yep, we've had that. We were doing like a water bottle. I mean, this is probably 13 years ago. We were doing a water bottle and one of our influencers got it and she said, this thing leaked all over my son's backpack. I am not
Yes.
I'm
Right.
not sharing it with.
Yep.
And we said, cool, donate it. Thank you.
I know this episode is not about why influencer marketing is so great, but that is why it's so great, because you learn about your product holistically, sort of in an unfiltered way before anything goes live. If you're working with the right influencers and an agency like yours or mine, where we're monitoring, I always say we start collecting data well before content goes live. That's data. We worked with Arrow Garden years ago and they shipped product that didn't work. This was foundational to this is R&D. This is not even marketing at that point. They needed to fix certain things that they learned about when it was in the hands of influencers before it went out to the broader public. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, these are, and good clients are aplenty. There are lots of great folks
Yeah.
in there, out in the mix. And again, I'm thinking about how refreshing and lovely it is when the person you're working with at a brand gets the business case for working together. They get what you're trying to do as an agency, not just as their vendor for certain services, but they want that sort of feedback loop and that synergy. There I go. I was trying not to use the word synergy this whole podcast and I did it. But yeah, that understand where they are in the hierarchy of their brand.
Yeah.
And what they need help selling in and making a business case for. Because again, at the end of the day, I think the term influencer marketing and all the money that's flowing into it makes it sound like a very sexy tactic. And it is, but there are layers and layers and layers that make it powerful and meaningful and risky if you're not doing it right. And the internal players at a brand that understand how all of these nuances go together just are a joy to work.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Well, let's put something out in the universe that we need more of these unicorn amazing. You know what? They're not even unicorns because I think we both have plenty of clients that are like this. But
and I will
put
say
something out in the universe out into the universe that we would like more.
That they're flowing to us. And the
Yeah.
coda to that is you and I, as the business owners and the biz dev people, can do a better job of teaching our clients how to be good clients, onboarding them correctly, filtering, hard qualifying. That's a discussion that Danielle and I will have off camera.
I think asking tough questions and being willing to hear tough answers, like being willing to, it didn't feel good to hear that I had the ugliest presentation, but I'm so grateful for it.
Yeah. It's an opportunity to up level.
Yeah.
And I bet you have.
It's not ugly anymore.
All right. Well, this has been fun.
Yes.
Good conversation.
We will chat again next week.
Sounds good. Bye.
Bye.